I'm having fun here in isolation, so let's go through another 3 players that I think have the potential to break out and see a boost in their card prices. What's going on, guys? Matt here, back again with another video. The hype is solely focused on the NFL season at the moment, as well as other sports, and I think it's actually a perfect time to be buying NBA. I've been doing my research on who I think will be breaking out based on off-season moves, as well as potential role changes. I can't cover every single player that can potentially break out, so do let me know in the comments who you think will be breaking out this season. Let's run through the first player, and that's Derek White from the San Antonio Spurs. If you guys have watched my videos since the start, you guys would know I'm a massive fan of Derek White through the highs and the lows, and unfortunately mostly lows. I'm going to bang on about him again being a breakout contender just because of the Spurs off-season. The Spurs are officially going to be rebuilding and finding a new identity with players like DeMar DeRozan, Rudy Gay, Patty Mills leaving in the off-season, as well as LaMarcus Aldridge leaving during the season. It's really a case of the Spurs having no main scorer right now, and even looking at their depth chart, it's hard to see who their best player is. You could potentially go between DeJounte Murray and Derek White being their best player. DeJounte is younger and seems to have more growth, but Derek White seems to be a better shot creator as well as a better defender. I'm personally going to be going with Derek White out of the two, and if you went the other way, I personally wouldn't fault you either. And the Spurs fans seem to be split between the two as well. In the Orlando bubble for the 2019-20 season, Derek White averaged 19 points and 5 assists in 7 games. He's also one of the best defensive guards in the NBA, and he always ranks near the top of the leaderboard when it comes to blocks for guards, so he's a very viable two-way player. His start to the 2020-21 season was quite poor due to numerous injuries, but once he seemed to settle in, he actually got a little bit better. In April of that same season, he averaged 18 points and 3 assists, and I think without DeMar on the team, that Derek White would be the main scorer and DeJounte Murray would be the main facilitator. You've also got Keldon Johnson and Jakob Poeltl, who are defensively minded players, so I think there's a lot of offense that needs to be generated. Now, the Spurs aren't going to be playoff contenders this season, but I do see an opportunity for them to potentially make the play-in spot. In saying so, this revamped team will have some inflated stats thanks to some increased roles and some increased touches. I can see Derek White averaging 20 points per game and being a borderline all-star, provided he doesn't have any injuries, which seems to be his biggest issue, unfortunately. He has a very physical game, which takes a toll on his body, and he ranks second in charges in the league, only behind Kyle Lowry. Last season, he had surgery in the off-season, and his first game back, he actually had another injury which ruled him out for a few weeks. Another thing is that Derek White is 27 years old, which isn't that old, but it may leave people thinking that potentially he has little room to grow. People looking to invest in players like the appeal of younger players, as we've seen in the past with the hype train growing for players like Sekou Doumbouya as well as Alex Pokusevski. You always hear those terms where someone is really young that they have so much room to grow. And look, I love hearing those stories as well, because we have seen it with Giannis where it's worked quite successfully, but you can't just look at the youngest players in the league each time. And although Derek White may not have room to grow, I do think the increased role will be enough for him to flourish. I feel like compared to the other 2 players that I'm going to be speaking about today, Derek White's prices haven't really moved because people like the appeal of younger players a little bit more. But in saying so, Derek White's Prism PSA 10 rookie card is really cheap at the moment and going for around $40 US. Moving on to the second player, and I'm a little bit biased being a fan, but that's Kevin Porter Jr. from the Houston Rockets. I was really trying to avoid posting KPJ as a breakout player just because everyone was super high on him. I was actually a little bit worried there'd be a small chance he wouldn't be able to start this season with the inclusion of Jalen Green. But luckily, John Wall and the Rockets have mutually agreed to part ways, so I do like KPJ as a breakout pick now. I was actually hoping that John Wall would play behind KPJ as well as Jalen Green just to give him a little bit of mentoring. The Rockets team situation is very similar to the Spurs in that you have a completely new team with the ability for inflated stats thanks to increased touches. Now, if you haven't heard KPJ's story, he actually had a solid rookie season before being traded by the Cavaliers for throwing a tantrum in the locker room. It wasn't the first indiscretion against KPJ, and he's had multiple in his college and professional career, which seems to be his biggest risk when it comes to investing in him. After his trade to the Rockets, KPJ was stashed in the G League before returning to the team and averaging 18 points and 6.5 assists. At this point, though, it was clear the Rockets were tanking, and KPJ was given the bulk of the touches, so he was putting up shot after shot. He definitely needs to work on his efficiency as a scorer, as he averages 43% from the field and 32% from the three-point line. However, he did have that 50-point and 10-assist game late in the season against the NBA champions in the Milwaukee Bucks. This shouldn't be slept on because it's not like the Bucks were resting, and he actually had one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA guarding him in Drew Holiday. His game is modeled on former Rocket James Harden, who he also looks up to as well. This season, I wouldn't be surprised to see KPJ's scoring take a backseat in preference to Jalen Green's scoring. And with his scoring taking a backseat, I wouldn't be surprised to see his assists take a jump with him being the main point guard. The Rockets will be banking on the Green KPJ pairing to be their key to an NBA championship in the future. And as a Rockets fan, I am super excited for it. Keep in mind, this season will probably be a losing season for the Rockets as they figure out their identity, but I can still see some excitement in the future of the team. I'm predicting KPJ this season to average 20 points per game and 8 assists, and like Derek White, I can see him being a borderline all-star as well. For price comparisons, KPJ's Prism PSA 10 goes for $75 US, but look for other short printed variations out there. His prices do have some hype already built into it, so decide for yourself whether you think he's a viable investment or not. Now to our last player in this video, and that's Miles Bridges from the Charlotte Hornets. Miles joins the other two in this list in that he had a great finish to the season last year, and it was thanks to Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball missing. This is sort of the risk with Miles now in that you have both of the players returning and whether there's enough space for him. I actually think the Hornets would have been stoked with Miles' play and would probably start him over PJ Washington, who people also think is a viable investment. On a side note, when doing research, I was actually surprised to see how many Hornets fans prefer Miles over PJ and that they were actually suggesting PJ as trade bait. If I was a PJ investor, I'd probably be selling off the rumor rather than waiting till the season to seize the motion. Moving on to Bridges' last 16 games of the season, and he averaged 21 points and 7 rebounds per game. But this is a crazy stat here. He did it all on 50% shooting from the field and 43% shooting from the three-point line. I don't think these efficiency numbers are going to be sustainable, unfortunately, but the return of LaMelo and Hayward will be great for Bridges. You might think with high usage players like LaMelo and Hayward that his scoring may be impacted, but I actually think it'll help him because Miles doesn't need much of the ball to score. I think both of them, and especially LaMelo, will provide enough playmaking and also draw enough attention to provide Miles that space to score. Also, never underestimate how much attention and hype can bring to your team when one of the most popular players in the NBA in LaMelo Ball is on your team. A lot of neutral fans will be tuning in to see LaMelo play, and they're going to catch a glimpse of Miles Bridges as well. Miles also won the 2019 Rising Stars Challenge MVP, but that's more of an exhibition game, so take of that what you will. I'm expecting Bridges to jump to a 16 to 19 points per game scorer, as well as being a great rebounder for the Hornets. I also think the Hornets will be pushing for a playoff or play-in spot, as last season they got incredibly close until injuries struck them. Bridges' rookie Prism PSA 10 goes for $70 US, and I do feel like this has some hype built into it, so do your own research as always. That is it for today's video. Thank you as always for making it until the end. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to be potentially breaking out, and I'll see you all in future videos as always. Take care.